Good evening, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight for the Re-Invent Payphones Design Challenge. The purpose of tonight is to provide you with information to help to perfect what we are sure are already very exciting design prototypes for the future of New York City's payphone infrastructure. But I first just want to thank all of you for being here. This is really a record crowd, I think, that at least I've seen in terms of these info sessions. So we really thank you for taking the time to be here. I want to thank all of our wonderful city experts who have also given of their time and their evening to be here. We know you've got a lot of things going on, and we really, really appreciate that. And I also want to thank two people who have made this evening possible logistically, Seema Shah and Lara Torvey. Thank you so much, guys, for all of the incredible work that have gone into this, but also into the full challenge. So I'm just going to give, my name is Rachel Hout. I'm the city's Chief Digital Officer. I'm going to give a little bit of very brief background because, again, the focus of tonight is really being able to answer your questions and help to provide more information that can inform the design prototypes for the Re-Invent Payphones Challenge. This project came about when the city's Information Technology and Telecommunications Agency, DoIT, reached out and they said, we've got a really exciting opportunity. We want to engage the public in imagining the future of New York City's payphone infrastructure. And it all started basically with a phone call from Nick Spordone over at DoIT, and really got the wheels turning in terms of how can we design a way for really constructive collaboration around this concept that today the city has 11,412 payphones, which you would know if you saw the initial announcement of this with the mayor live from a payphone at the New York Tech Meetup. And we know that the use of these payphones is changing because of the way people communicate. We know that the rise of mobile telephones and mobile phones has transformed the way that people are communicating. The numbers are declining, but we also know that in times of need and times of emergency, such as during Hurricane Sandy, payphones have played an incredibly important role in making sure that people stay connected. So our goal is how can we set the global standard for what the future of urban connectivity can mean, and how can we do that in a way that supports a lot of the criteria and the key elements of the Re-Invent Payphones Challenge that we're trying to solve for, including personal safety, supporting communities, supporting local businesses, sustainability, creating a greener New York, all of these wonderful things that are hallmarks of the Bloomberg administration and things that the mayor is really passionate about. And above all, it's about innovation and about doing this in a collaborative way because we've got the best and brightest here in New York City at our design firms, at our academic institutions, at our tech companies, in the private sector, and in New York City government, though of course I'm biased, but I'm really honored to work with so many innovative and committed people every single day here at the City of New York. So without further ado, the way that tonight's going to work is that we have a place for the public to ask questions, and we welcome you to line up after we've gone through the introductions of all the people on this panel so that you know what everyone's area of expertise is. And we ask that you ask one question per person. And we also would request that all of the questions should be catered towards the Re-Invent Payphones Design Challenge. If it's a press question, we have a number of wonderful press people here who can answer your question. Can you guys raise your hands in case there are any journalists or reporters in the crowd? These folks are happy to answer any questions that you have. We really want to keep this productive and focused on helping all of our innovators and creators here tonight. I also want to make it very clear that this Re-Invent Payphones Challenge is completely distinct and separate from the formal RFP process. I think that Stanley Shore will talk a little bit more about that. Again, the winner of this challenge will not go on to change formally the city's payphone infrastructure. This is something that will follow the city's official procurement process and RFP process. What we do hope to do in the model of what we've done with other projects like NYC.gov is to really help help the most inspiring and innovative ideas inform the way that we shape what that RFP is when it goes out, if it makes sense. So the idea is to be the spark for innovation, and again, this is completely distinct from any formal procurement processes for the City of New York. So I think that that's pretty much it. We'll also be peppering in, depending on how long the line is or short the line is, for our questions from the public, questions from Twitter. You're welcome to tweet and capture anything, of course, that happens here tonight with the hashtag Re-Invent Payphones. And again, there's more information at nyc.gov/reinventpayphones. So with that, I think that's pretty much it. And I will turn it over to the rest of the panelists and allow everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. And I'd also like to ask if everyone can, in addition to saying the agency that you're from, what your lens is on this project and what's sort of interesting for you and your agency's perspective on Re-Invent Payphones and what that could mean. Again, keeping it brief, but I think that would be helpful too. So thank you, everyone, and Stanley, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. How should I hold it? Okay. As Rachel mentioned, the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, or DOIT, is in charge of the payphones on the streets. We're basically in charge of all the telecommunication franchises that the city has that use the city's streets. We have these franchises. There are currently 13 franchises for payphones, and we have an expiration coming up in October of 2014, and we are interested in seeing what people would like for the next franchise, using our city streets, creating a convenience for telecommunications. The number of payphones has decreased dramatically over the years. There were 33,000. We're down to about 11,000. But these locations are strategically placed around the city to be convenient for people to use to communicate. They also provide opportunity for revenue through advertising. We made close to $18 million last year, primarily from advertising. So we want to see something new that everybody wants. And that's part of this challenge, is not to be constrained by what you think a payphone should be or was, but what it could be and what people really want. And we're very interested in hearing what you have to say. Thanks.
Hi, I'm happy to see everyone here. It's really great to, we're really excited by this whole competition idea. I'm Margaret Newman from the Department of Transportation. And just to clarify what the Department of Transportation is or does, we're not the MTA, for those of you who thought we might be. We maintain and take care of the public right-of-way, which is the space between the buildings. So it's basically sidewalks, streets, signs, traffic lights, and all of the stuff in between. So our interest in this is that rather than talk about transportation, it's about mobility, which means that we need both people and cars and bicyclists and everybody who uses the streets to be able to move freely through the streets. So our interest is really in developing a streetscape. We talk about it as a kind of landscape that is available to everyone and easily utilized by everyone. So we're interested in this because payphones over the years have gotten in people's way as well as provided a service. So we'd like to figure out a new way to something that provides a useful function on the street, but also something that doesn't occupy too much space and contribute to clutter, which we're trying to reduce.
My name's Tom Hughes. I'm the User Experience Manager for the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation's New Media Division. And I think my lens on this is utilizing the payphones that exist within parks to communicate the myriad recreational opportunities that the Parks Department provides. We're a location-based agency, and there's lots of things to do, and it's a challenge for our communications divisions, of which the New Media Division is one, to get that across. So if there was any way that we could use these payphone locations to help inform the public what is nearby that they might be interested in doing in the parks, that would be amazing. And additionally, within the context of that, to fit into the beautiful outdoor landscapes that we're working with. So, how can we utilize payphones that fit into the natural environment?
So my name is Andrew Nicklin. I'm the Director of Research and Development at the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications. I think I have two interests. So let me clarify. I manage the city's open data portal, and basically we run a site that allows people to get access to the city's data. And so from the data perspective, I think there's kind of two things that I'd be really interested in seeing. First is how can the reinvented payphone provide access to more city information and services to the general public, people who are passing by and want to take advantage of these devices or these payphones on the streets? And then second of all, what information, what data can be collected from them that can feed into the way the city operates and help the city make effective decisions about how we're managing our infrastructure and how we're managing our operation?
I can't tell if this microphone is farsighted or not. My name is Ari Khan. I'm from the Mayor's Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability. My office keeps track of Plan YC, which is the city's plan to become greener and greater by 2030. It encompasses 127 or so initiatives. I'm here mostly to be inspired by you. I work on electric vehicle policy predominantly, which involves trying to repurpose the city for new modern uses. So I'm hoping that some of your ideas can help me, but I'm also happy to answer any sustainability questions you may have.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Justin Moore from the Department of City Planning, a senior urban designer there. Department of City Planning is responsible for policy and regulations around land use, building development, and also, to some degree, public spaces. The agency is, of course, very interested in this project. Over the course of this administration, we've really looked out to promote good design and quality in design, and believing that good design promotes the city's economic development and competitiveness. Another primary interest of the agency is really the belief that the street is the way that you measure the life and vitality of the city. We've worked in various projects and development to sort of promote that the building and the development that takes place in the city does engage the street, and the payphone is obviously a part of that.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Alicia West, and I'm the Director of Capital Projects at the Design Commission. The Design Commission is New York City's design review board, and we review permanent works of art, architecture, and landscape architecture on city-owned property. So that's anything from museums and libraries, parks, plazas, and playgrounds to street furniture, and that includes payphones. So our purview is aesthetics. So our hope is for this competition is that all of you are thinking not only about what future payphones might do, but also what they'll look like. This is an enormous opportunity to change the technological and visual landscape of this city, and we're really excited to see what you all come up with.
Thank you. I'm Robert Piccolo. I'm the Deputy Commissioner in the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I'm also an architect. The reason we're here is to make sure that the needs and preferences of people with disabilities are accommodated. We were in this project very early on, and even had proposed some concepts for the designs. So to reach this point where the prototypes are actually going to be designed and examined carefully, we're going to take those ideas and then we're going to go to the community and make sure that they're aware of the concept, design ideas, and see what else they could add to the project.
Great. Well, I'm going to go over a few more details, but we imagine some of you might have questions. You're welcome to start lining up and asking those questions. The mic is right there. If literally none of the over 100 people who are in the room have questions, we'll start with Twitter questions. But please, we welcome you to line up right there and start asking your questions. And we promise some really great answers, and we've pulled in all these wonderful people. I also want to note a couple of things I didn't mention. You can get more information on the challenge at nyc.gov/reinventpayphones. In addition to that, the website is now open for proposals to be submitted. Again, we're looking for, wherever possible, physical prototypes to be demonstrated. But again, it can be sort of at the intersection of physical and digital, and that's really what we're trying to examine. And the deadline for the prototype submissions is February 18th. So, any questions? Please line up at the microphone. It's good to see you all and wave, but please line up and we'll go through the questions one by one, and they will be answered in the order that they are asked. And for each question, we will basically find the person who's here and who's in the best position to answer your question. So again, please line up. The line starts at the mic. And we ask that each person please introduce yourself and your affiliation, and then ask one question. So please go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Excuse me. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Gaffney, and I am the co-founder of Bump Up. And I have a question, and it pertains to the revenue regarding the payphones competition. So I was just wondering, the current revenue model, as I read in the competition, I just want to know how much will that be considered in the judging, and also what is the current breakdown of the revenue for the current payphone model?
Okay. As far as the current revenue, as of the last fiscal year, which ended in June, it was $17.7 million that the city got from the payphones, of which $16,471,000 came from advertising commissions. The rest came from payphone usage between local and long-distance commissions. So as far as what we are looking for as part of this design challenge, we're not really looking for you to get into what the phone could make. We're really interested in thinking outside of the box, coming up with something that people are interested in having out on the streets. Obviously, ultimately, the city needs to have revenue, but as part of this exercise, we don't want you to get really tied up with that. We're really interested in what could go on the streets, and then later on, we can worry about the economics of it. Thanks.
Thank you.
And just to add on to that, I mean, if within the criteria, the most relevant piece is probably within functionality. There's flexibility, versatility, scalability, accessibility, and sustainability. And one of the elements for sustainability is revenue, and that's because that's less of an impact on taxpayer dollars that's going to supporting the city and going to supporting that itself. So if functionality is 20%, it's less than 20%. I guess it works out to 4 points technically. So as Stanley was saying, it's not a major it's not a major deciding factor.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is George Laszlo. I'm an independent IT consultant. So first of all, I'm going to applaud you for doing this. I think it's a great idea. However, I have a serious concern about you making sure that you get the best ideas coming forward and the best prototypes as well. And the reason that I'm saying that is because if I understand the rules correctly, everyone who is participating would have to give up their rights to their ideas. That is a serious concern, especially because you'll be going through an RFP process afterwards to actually do something. And I think given the revenue streams that you're looking at pulling in here, both the winners and the losers are going to be pretty much left out in the cold as far as benefiting from that. So I would like you to first explain, if I understand it correctly, the rules and regulations as far as participating, because I, for one, would not do it if I didn't have some idea that I would get something back potentially, whether I'm a loser or a winner.
Okay, so is the question, do you give up the rights to your idea that you create?
Yes,
if you were going to
for being used specifically
okay.
In any way you want.
Okay, yes. And again, very helpful. It's very important that everything be phrased in a question, hopefully, that is being submitted. So to clarify, you do not give up the rights to the ideas that you're creating. The way that it's structured as the city has a perpetual royalty-free license to use those ideas, and that's basically because that's the legal way that enables the city to potentially use the ideas. And part of the goal, even though it's not a requirement that the ideas coming out of here will be implemented, we do want to leave the opportunity that these ideas could be realized. And again, if you're not comfortable with that, we completely understand. We do have the formal RFP process that anyone is also able to engage in, and that's the way we've structured this challenge.
Hey, how you doing? So my question is two-pronged. Number one, who is financing the winner's rollout? Number one. And number two, is there a revenue share for the winner?
So the winner of the Re-Invent Payphones Challenge is not being rolled out. That will go through the formal RFP process. The winner is going to be celebrated and lauded and publicized, but that's the extent of the reward of being the winner. We think it's a great way to get a lot of exposure for your talents. We also think it's a really exciting way for new people to contribute to the future landscape of New York City and help to shape the future of our city. So the winner will not be rolled out. And so I think your second question that covers the second question.
So if you do win, that's formally submitted into the generic RFP process?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gregory. I have a couple of suggestions about reinvented payphone. One of them is related directly to the park services. My idea is to equip reinvented payphone with an overhead movie projector on top. So if you place a screen this kind of distance from a phone, it's possible to project a movie and make some entertainment in the park. During the summer, during the dusk. How do you think? Is it possible? My second idea, there are some panoramic viewing locations in New York where there are binoculars which are very powerful as no one of pocket-sized digital cameras. So the straight sense to combine payphone with this kind of binocular and a lot of software issues how to transfer pictures to user's account. By the way, it might be slightly irrelevant to today's meeting. I have a lot of issues about public transportation, especially electric one in New York. That's it.
Just from the Parks Department's perspective, we would love your ideas and everyone else who has similar kinds of ideas about the way that the payphones can influence parks. So please, submit them.
Okay, just one more idea for parks. Such a payphone can work as a guide for a park. By the way, just like you go to museum and take an audio guide, so you can use your iPad to program it, or get program from App Store, which will work directly with payphones in a park and make a guided tour. My idea is such.
Again, please, I think these are very interesting ideas, and please submit them through the contest.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Kent. I am a city planner that just moved back from Columbus, Ohio, and I was helping develop their North Bank Park public art project. You don't have any. If there aren't any more people looking to ask questions, I have a whole list. I'll start with one and only one. The first one is, first off, I hope it doesn't poke at any sore spots, but the relationship that you've built with City 24/7. I really like the idea that they've developed with their model. Why weren't they contracted to develop their model?
City 24/7 currently has agreements with about 4 different payphone franchisees to install touchscreens at 250 locations. So what's going on there is they've been developing their touchscreen model, and in the time that we've been talking to them, it's developed significantly. and they're doing this rollout with the existing franchisees. If they weren't doing it with the existing franchisees, they wouldn't be able to roll it out because we don't have a competition for a franchise until those franchises end. So in reality, they've worked out something that's been beneficial to them and to the city to come in at this point. They are just rolling out on the streets. Their experience will help inform the city about what people will like to use in the future. So we think that it's very compatible with what we're doing now. So we're not saying, hey, this is a great thing that City 24/7 is doing and we're not interested in what anybody else is doing. We're saying, hey, this is something that we'd like to see and maybe what everybody likes, or it may be just a facet of what people want to see, and maybe they want a lot of other functionality. Their investment at this current time is helpful to the city and helpful to them to be noticed. And we hope that this competition will help designers come up with other things that will be embraced by the city. And ultimately that we can replace what's out there with something, either one thing or several things that will please the people of the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I was going to say, let's keep the questions, if possible, focused on building your prototypes and participating in the challenge.
So a quick question from Twitter. I don't want to leave folks on Twitter out. ID Strength asks, is there a maximum structure volume allowed, width, length, or height for the purposes of the competition?
I believe, again, the sky is the limit, and so we do not have any of those requirements that may be different for the formal RFP process, but this is not the formal RFP process. So for this situation, there are no restrictions or limits.
Hi, I'm Stephen Higashide. I'm an urban planner. That's actually very similar to the question I was going to ask, but I have another question. How are the current phones powered, and how much power can that existing infrastructure provide without upgrading?
Some of the current phones are just powered with the copper lines. Some of them have electrical connections. Potentially, whatever could be put in a conduit under the street could go into whatever is put out on the out in the new installation. So I wouldn't confine any design to what the existing situation is.
Thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea Pappas, and my question is simply if there's any physical size constraints or guidelines on the sidewalk that we need to be aware of.
Again, for the purpose of the challenge, there are no restrictions. I mean,
I didn't mean to be repetitive. I just had the question written down, and he didn't say
great.
it that
We're
way.
glad
so
you're asking questions.
I wanted to say it in my way and make sure I got the
You said
answer.
it in a slightly different way. Yeah, for this, I think, it's up to you. You want to keep it as realistic as possible, but there are no hard restraints in terms of this design challenge.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ron Golden. I'm with Studio Akko, or design agency. We definitely come to this perspective from the user experience, the kind of the design standpoint. As Rachel mentioned, there's a whole spectrum of what a prototype could mean, from very digital, kind of like look how cool this thing could be, to very technical and kind of feasible and realistic. How are these prototypes going to be evaluated? Are you going to give kind of weight to certain aspects of it, or what could we expect the prototype to entail?
The prototypes will be evaluated based on the same judging criteria that is the formal judging criteria by the judges. Again, we're not at a stage yet where we've seen what people are submitting. We've tried in the language of the challenge to lean more towards our interest in physical prototypes, at least from the NYC Digital perspective. In my office, we've done a lot of digital innovation challenges and hackathons, and we think this is a really exciting opportunity to marry physical and digital, but we'll sort of see how far people can get in the time span that's been allowed, and I think the power of the ideas will be key above all, and execution along both lines. So there's no specific criteria about physical versus digital, but we would really like to encourage the development of physical prototypes if possible, just to make it sort of more real and more engaging to everyone.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Jaffe. I'm from It's Your Internet and also the Re-Invent the Payphones meetup. My question is, for the other devices that are currently on the sidewalk today, like parking meter, pay stations that have been rolled out, is that under the same jurisdiction as the payphones, and can they all be rolled up into a universal device that can be rolled out for the city?
It is a great question. The answer is they're not under the same jurisdiction other than their city government regulated. The Department of Transportation oversees the parking meters, and most of the other elements on the street, although there are franchises that handle the newsstands and the bus shelters, which is managed by DOT but not owned specifically by DOT. So they're different. Most of the things on the street are either DOT or the payphones. There's a few miscellaneous franchise pieces.
It's, in terms of the locations, only the present 11,000 approximate locations of the phones are where things can be located on the street? Or
no, actually not. I mean, there's some flexibility there, and we're hoping that someone will come up with some good ideas. I will just put a personal plug in here because we think there's too many things on the street. We've added bike racks. There's going to be bike share stations. As the number of things on the street increases, it would be nice, as you suggest, to consolidate them. So we're hoping that this becomes more of a virtual idea, or that there could be less of them to cover more area.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ian Licklin. My question is there a hierarchy to the judging criteria, or are they weighted in any specific way?
They are weighted equally. I believe we have this on the website, but in case that wasn't clear, they're weighted equally.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Adam Wrigley. I'm an engineer at Frog Design. I'm just wondering if you could clarify a little bit when you say digital versus physical prototypes, what exactly you mean. If we were to show a video or renderings of an idea, a concept, where does that lie in your idea of what a prototype is, or do you want like a physical mock-up? Does it need a working user interface, or just concepts?
Basically, three-dimensional versus two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
But again, please submit whatever you have. We welcome all prototypes. We welcome all ideas, and we don't yet know what the result is going to be. We realize it's a relatively short time period to expect fully developed physical prototypes. So we welcome everything, and I think we're also sort of learning about what the outcomes will be and what people bring to the table.
So things like even a scale model might be better than no physical thing.
Yes, I mean,
okay.
Again, yeah. The simplest way is to bring it down to 3 dimensions versus 2 dimensions,
right.
And I think that's helpful in terms of visualizing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm Kip Meebor, representing Zippy Nation from Atlanta, Georgia. And I've got some questions focused towards the disability accommodations requirement. And I was wondering if you could kind of frame what kind of accommodations would be useful to include. I can't right now imagine a design that wouldn't have some computer functions to it, such as the info screens that we're already seeing and such. So I can imagine there would be many designs that would have computer functions. So could you address the accommodations and maybe the populations in New York that have functional needs that we'd need to serve, possibly populations with no computers, and populations that you know of that don't have phones, that are heavy users of the infrastructure today?
Okay, that's a lot. Well, first I'm going to read you a laundry list, and then I'm going to get into a few separate items. This is what we wanted included. And I said before that we were on this project early on, and the reason is that we produced this publication called Inclusive Design Guidelines. I believe it's online. I think you included an excerpt regarding the prototypes. And what that is, it's a universal design guidebook, and we're calling it inclusive design for obvious reasons for various users. In that, we examine this. Actually, we did this with City 24/7 back in 2008, maybe. It was pretty far back. And at the time, City 24/7 was coming up with concepts that didn't become reality until the last few years. So they were way ahead of the curve. And when we were putting this book together, they agreed to participate, and we worked out a bunch of ideas. So I'm just going to read some of the stuff that we included. First thing was we wanted the touch screens with a replaceable embossed clear protective coating that overlays the visual keys. And the reason for that is we didn't want to see a separate keyboard. But to make it a tactile keyboard meant that some people with disabilities could use it, someone who's blind, for instance, so it would have Braille on it. We wanted portrait or landscape orientation, depending upon whether the person is seated using a wheelchair or walker or whatever. We want bidirectional voice and data communications for emergencies, targeted broadcast alerts, for instance, linking to OEM, where they have the yellow, orange, and red alerts. And we looked at the smart screens more of a pedestrian billboard than anything else. So if they're scattered around the city, if you think about it, the scale of it, the location, the eye level, and how they're integrated into the neighborhoods, it's really a very subtle introduction of a pedestrian billboard without overwhelming the neighborhood. We wanted assistive listening technology, such as a transmitter for hearing aid T-coils, which if people aren't aware, you could turn the switch on in your hearing aid and you could get a transmission. Before you mentioned physical requirements, I didn't chime in on that, but there are a lot of things that we'd like to see. First thing is we want clear floor space and not the minimums. And if anyone wants a copy of the IDG, they could email me directly at rpiccolo@cityhall.nyc.gov, and I'll send you a copy of the publication. But in that publication, what we did was we approached it on a universal level, and we weren't looking at minimums. So, for instance, the clear floor space, we want 36 by 60, which is preferred, with a tactile surface as an indicator for somebody who has sight disabilities. Knee and toe clearances, 27 inches minimum. If you go under the screen, especially if you're typing, you want to face forward, not to the side. Toe clearances, limitation on protruding objects, reach ranges, forward and side reaches, and included in the book there's a comfort seating zone. So there's a band that within the minimum maximums that are dictated by code and even in the IDG, there's a comfort range in there that a lot of people like to use. That's preferred rather than going low or going high. Operable parts, and we have a whole section in here about that. We have about, 5 pages of that, which includes or accommodates the needs and preferences of users that addresses, standard and alternate operation, visual, tactile, and auditory characteristics. They're all laid out in there. We want controls for brightness, contrast, type size, and style, audio output options, and language selection. For people with hearing disabilities, besides the T-coil, we would also like a video relay system with built-in cameras for two-way visual communication and closed captioning, or open captioning, depending upon what the feature is. Closed captioning is when you could turn the captioning on and off, but in the case of an emergency call, we would want the caption opening where the text is being zipped across the screen all the time. We want locator beacons, which are audio, reference point system, blue light indicators, the ability to raise or lower images on the screen. We want a variety of operational presets for depending upon what your disability is. You would touch that disability, and the system would automatically go to those presets. Pictogram operation to simplify the operation of the unit. The tactile keyboard, like I already suggested. Full verbal operation. I mean, really robust verbal operation that goes beyond even Dragon. We also want to use them as building directories, but there are other alternate operations, alternate locations that we considered, and that's part of it would be maybe to locate them in the call box locations for the police and fire, which are also somewhat obsolete, but there's legal issues why they still exist. In kiosks, building directories, landmarks, public lobbies, key tourist attraction, critical transportation location. We've suggested the use of these screens in the theater district, in some of the high tourist areas, the High Line, the Whitney building extension. We've been involved with all these projects. But we'd like to see them in key locations. We also want the highest vandal-resistant enclosures, and we want standard components for easy replacement and upgrade capability within the enclosure to accommodate unanticipated hardware items and unanticipated needs, which I'm sure some of the people in this room will propose. But I have much more. I'm going to cut it at this point.
Was there any? Do you have any information on the underserved populations that may not have a phone and would rely on this phone?
Well, that's the idea behind the pictograms. You may have, especially with the elderly, they don't embrace the new technologies. But I think that these are put on the street and they become commonplace, and they're so easy to use. And City 24/7 has actually indicated that with the prototypes that they put in place. People still need some sort of minor technical background right now, but with what we're proposing, if you cover the entire range of all the disabilities, the end result is that you're going to make the unit easier to use for everyone else. And that's primarily what the concept is behind universal design, is that we're taking accessibility to the next level and accommodating user needs and preferences of people with diminished abilities. And when you address diminished abilities, the people that are fully able, the unit becomes much more easier to use. But we're definitely addressing the aging population here.
Okay, thank you.
My initial question was actually about disabilities, but it was answered now. The criteria for the winner, let's say, of the contest, although what you mentioned are very important for the true functionality of the phone, is the contest winner going to be measured by how much it inspires the true phone?
So the winner will be chosen by the judges who have been identified. I believe we have 6 judges. And the 5 criteria that are on the website, nyc.gov/reinvent payphones, will be equally weighted. So connectivity is the first, creativity, visual design, functionality, and community impact. And I'll just go through them really quickly since there's a little bit more on each. Connectivity, ability to connect New Yorkers and enable communication, including for safety and emergency alert purposes. For creativity, that's defined as originality, innovation, and quality of ideas, something that everyone hasn't seen before, something completely novel. The third, visual design, including visual appeal and user experience in every dimension. Functionality, which is including flexibility, versatility, scalability, accessibility, and sustainability. And community impact. How can we support local residents, businesses, and cultural institutions? So those are all equally weighted, and the judges will weigh in on each of those criteria for the 15 semifinalists.
Maybe my question would have been like, although all the specifics that Mr. Piccolo just mentioned, if anything were to be outside of that creativity, would that be kind of ruled out?
Sorry?
Like if something does not meet the specifications that Mr. Piccolo just mentioned, would that be something just ruled out, or is it just measuring how creative it really was?
So in terms of that very important criteria, those may be requirements or specific directions for the formal RFP process. For the purposes of the design challenge, there are no formal constraints.
Okay,
so there are no formal requirements for this design challenge, although for what actually ultimately is built and what is selected through the formal procurement process and RFP process, those will certainly that will be a different scenario altogether.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Robert Brill. My question is about the dichotomy you just mentioned between the RFP process and the procurement process. So could you elaborate a little bit about, after the contest is over and now you're going to those two things, do you envision them as separate things, that is procurement versus RFP? Is it an RFP just for the design, or is it the RFP for public pay telephones as is presently in existence as a matter of law? So perhaps you and Stanley could answer that question. Thank you.
What we're doing today is to answer questions for the design challenge. The design challenge is an effort that the city is doing to engage people to think about what could be out there. And what will come of this will be a lot of designs and ideas that people sitting at desks in city offices wouldn't have thought about. And this is an opportunity to help shape what we are going to put together into a request for proposals. Then ultimately, what we do with the request for proposals, whether it be include 3 design elements or 5 design elements, and include the traditional payphone or some future generation of the payphone in addition to some other telecommunications, that will be shaped by this. So it's we don't know, right, sitting here today, what the RFP is going to look like. We're hoping that it'll include lots of ideas shaped by this design challenge. That's what we're doing now. Obviously, we're going to be constrained by the laws of what's allowed on the streets and what we have to allow on the streets. But beyond that, we're looking for ideas without constraint.
Hi, I'm David Siren. I'm a user experience designer. My question is probably for Andrew. In terms of open data that's available to the city, I'm just curious what's missing right now. What would you like to have which doesn't exist today, but you think would have a great impact? And I swear it's related to payphones.
Well, I think the most immediate thing that comes to mind is any kind of sensor data, right? So, environmental awareness, if we can get hyper-local information of what temperature it is all over the city, or what the wind direction is, or what the volume of noise is in a particular place, I think those are really interesting things that can foster further discussion around public policy and so on. So I think similar to some of the other comments here, the sky's the limit on that. Whatever you can imagine to put in to capture data, let's learn about it and let's figure out if there's a way to make that happen.
Another question from Twitter. Are you going to use social media to let the public vote on the ideas? And will the submissions be made public?
So the submissions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, so the submissions will be made public after the semifinalists are chosen, not before that point. So when you submit, your ideas will not be publicly published. In terms of after we select a winner, I believe we're going to do an informal opportunity for people to vote on the prototypes online, but there will be no specific prize attached to that vote. But we'll announce the winner. So we will give the public an opportunity to vote on the top 15 semifinalists who are chosen via social media. Do we have another question?
My name is Ray Mastriani. Has the city given any thought in terms of the reliability of the existing pay telephones? While it's old technology, when power goes down, that they have operated because they don't require electricity to get it from the telephone company. Will it be a non-starter if people come up with designs that don't have that same type of dependability that you get from a traditional payphone? Because I'm sorry, because we thought about screens as well, which would require electricity, but will that be a non-starter?
I think it's a really important point. Again, for the design challenge, there are no non-starters. The RFP process and what actually gets built, which is a completely separate process, that's a completely different story, so I won't comment on it in that context. I think it's worth acknowledging that at a minimum we want to make sure that people are safe, and we want to provide sustainable solutions that are operational in the event of emergencies, and that's why it is one of the judging criteria, and something that we've reinforced a number of times. But again, there's no non-starters in this. The goal here is to encourage innovation and creativity and collaboration with New Yorkers and with people who want to help shape the future of the city.
Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any more questions? I think if it's a specific question about participating in the challenge, we'd invite people to come up to the microphone if everyone has already asked their question.
I have one more Twitter
and
question.
we have another Twitter one in the meantime.
So Maureen Boudreau asks, is there any data available on the current usage of payphones in NYC, such as how people use them, what for, and who uses them?
Okay. As far as the usage of the payphones, obviously it's an anonymous kind of action. You go and use a payphone, nobody knows, unless somebody has a camera sitting outside the payphone who's using the payphone. So the only knowledge that we have about the use of the payphones is that the level of usage has gone down. We know that the phones are still used for 911 calls. We know that there's some of the busiest payphones are used in the Times Square area, so we assume that there's still an interest of tourists. But as far as specific data, I don't believe that even the payphone companies would be able to answer that. Excuse me? Oh, well, clearly those are used by people who pay a subway fare.
So just one other point about the data. There is some limited data available, so we are publishing Wi-Fi metrics or Wi-Fi usage metrics for payphones that are equipped with Wi-Fi. So we have information about how many sessions, how many users are using them per month, how much data is being transferred through those hotspots, and so on. And that's available on our open data portal now.
And as far as the usage in the subways, that's not controlled by my department. There's a company named PTS that has that contract with the MTA, and they would be able to provide that information.
Go ahead.
So George Laszlo again, and forgive me, this is actually about participating in this particular thing, but my question is related to the RFP. So Mr. Shore, specifically for you, I think, under the assumption that an RFP normally contains a set of requirements, functional requirements at least, if not system requirements, would you consider it fair that, as a question, as a request, that the ideas that are identified to be worthy of inclusion from this contest into the RFP, specifically identify the individuals who came up with those ideas and their contact information so that the people who are responding to the RFP could actually contact them for input?
Again, we're not discussing the RFP at this point. I feel it would probably be premature and not very responsible for us to talk about the RFP process because we're not there yet. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I think we're delving into a legal area. I'm really not equipped. I'm not an attorney.
Okay, then I would just
so I could
request that you consider that when you get to that particular point. I really think I'm really concerned about the level of participation, and that's how my first question was all about. And I think that you're discouraging people from participating in this event by ignoring the link between this process and the RFP process. I really think that's going to inhibit people from coming forward with the best ideas possible, and they're not going to reveal them unless they are able to somehow participate with the RFP, which certainly individuals would have a tough time doing.
Yeah, well, your comments are very much understood, and I believe that a number of the likely people who would be submitting proposals actually are here listening to what you're saying. So that will be considered as part of the process.
Hi, I'm Tim Prunty, and I'm just curious. When I was looking at your website, there was a lot of references to what I guess you guys call the city furniture contracts and the franchise you have with that in comparison. And they talked about the Department of Transportation, Margaret, I guess, with the consolidation of the footprint. I guess what I'm wondering is are they open to combination stuff with like bus stops, that kind of thing, and combining the phones there? Or is it got to be in the same footprint or where the phone is right now? Prototypes.
So quickly for the challenge, we are open to all ideas. Obviously, it can be a framework to consider the existing footprint. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on the other.
I think, as Rachel said, I think all ideas are open, and I think I would encourage everyone to think about how people use the street and what types of communication you need to have. I mean, as I said initially, I'm really excited about this, and I really think payphones are very much outdated and outlived their usefulness, and we've gotten a number of letters from various community boards asking us to take them out. Please get rid of all of them. So obviously these guys want to keep them. They're a source of revenue for the city, which is really important, and convenience. And 911, I think, is a major, and someone else mentioned during certain types of events when cell phone use is really limited, those things are a lifeline for people. So I think, I don't know, the questions have been very specific, but as I think everyone here is involved in some way or another in planning the city and designing the city and sort of thinking about it from a sort of imagining what it could be, establishing policies for the city, and we'd like to see something really fabulous happen. So, everyone should be, I think, sort of dreaming up in this early sort of call for ideas. What could these things be? I mean, I don't know, but and we all have cell phones. Everyone in this room is like checking their phones while I'm Twittering, and I'm following the Twitter feed. So, I mean, I know people are sending messages, but people from out of town can't necessarily access their providers, so they can't. We're going to be having wayfinding that's going to be going out on the street starting this year. So it could tie into some of those things. People get around by bicycle now. There's all kinds of new developments on the street. So I think the payphones should reflect something about the future rather than all of a lot of things about the past.
Thanks for that. Just one more question. On the presentation now, I guess it's the February 18th, is there a time limit for what people have to present their prototype?
The submissions for prototypes are due to be submitted electronically online by February 18th. The actual demo day will be March 5th, the Tuesday, and that's going to be taking place at the headquarters of Quirky, which is an invention platform essentially in New York City. It's a tech company. There will be up to 15 presenters that day, and depending on how many, we'll talk about what the time period is. It will be fairly quick, depending on how many we have. So it'll be fairly short presentations.
Okay.
Thanks.
Another Twitter question. This is about submissions. Will more than one submission be accepted since parks is different than streets? So
I believe one submission per team is what we're requesting. We're not going to have one team present twice just to give everyone an opportunity, but you're welcome to have lots of ideas in each submission.
I have a question about the competition. It's a follow-up to the question that was asked earlier about intellectual property. Did I understand you correctly that the winner of the competition, in effect, is conveying to the city by participation an unlimited license and I suppose unlimited in duration, but the losers are not? Could you clarify that?
I believe it's by entering the competition when you submit your prototype. So that's part of the challenges. You are that's a condition of when you submit your prototype. Those are the conditions.
So it applies to the winner, semifinalists, everybody who submits. That's a condition.
All participants in the challenge. Those are the rule. Those are part of the official rules of the challenge. So when you participate in the challenge, those are part of the rules.
And did I understand you? You said elements. So the RFP intends to possibly take elements from this competition, and in effect, if the RFP does that, in order that anyone responding to the RFP and winning in the RFP process, using the designs that the city prefers, if an element comes from the competition, then is the city going to, in effect, provide that a sub-license, as it were, to the RFP responders, so there's no infringement of any of the original designer's design? I mean, apropos of what the gentleman there was saying, that's a complication when it comes to intellectual property. So if you haven't considered it, are you considering it, or have you a response to that? Have you thought about that?
I mean, the rights situation applies to the city, not to the vendors who will participate. So it's only in the implementation. I don't know if I'm mischaracterizing that. And again, it's completely optional to participate in this design challenge. And those are the terms. I wanted to also mention one of the another tweet that it's sort of a question, but but I thought it was interesting to note from @YUESPIUSB. Are you open to art installations? In other words, having one or a few city payphones serving as an exhibition space? And obviously, yes, everything is on the table, and we're open to all kinds of ideas. So I think we're coming close to the end. Does anyone else up here have any comments that they want to share? Here.
So I just want to build on Margaret's urging to be excellent. I think that there are incredible ways to tackle this, and I urge you to include sort of all of the ideas people have mentioned. Certainly sustainability. I think there are some really great ways to bring green down to the street level and into the telephone booth. So, for example, cities investing billions in green infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure. So, the idea of including bioswales, that would be incredible and really visible for New Yorkers. And I think there are probably 1,000,001 ideas along. If you follow those tributaries down, you could think of some really interesting ideas.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of that in that I would encourage the designers to think about future phone, future payphone, really in a 360 degrees, and think about the full urban environment and not the object. The problem of the clutter on the street is that everyone thinks about their function, their purpose, their object, kind of individually and not really as a full environment. So it's something that I think, as we look toward future and technology and ways of opening up what the new city street is going to be, that it really incorporates, what's adjacent to the environment. How does your device affect users? How does it affect flows? Kind of outside of the box of an object in space with, discrete functions.
I'm intrigued by the idea that one gentleman brought up about sort of grouping street furniture and functions. And I would just encourage you, to build off of what you were saying, to really look at what is the established design on our streetscape, what are new elements that we might want to bring in terms of visual language, what do we want to build upon, looking at the Samusa Street Furniture franchise, which is one of the newest elements out on the street all across the city, and just seeing how these things can work together and complement one another.
A couple of comments. You mentioned the artwork. That was one of the reasons that we got involved with the Whitney extension, the new extension at the terminus of the High Line. We thought it would be a great idea to promote the exhibits, and then it expanded, and we started thinking about the theater district and promoting the plays by using these as true pedestrian billboards, which would almost be the same size and proportions that they actually use outside of the theaters. And then involving streetscape design, one of the things we're also involved, which seemed to be in conflict with accessibility, was the idea of an active lifestyle. And this is being promoted by the Department of Design and Construction under Commissioner Burney and through the AIA. And one of the things I would suggest is that you take a look at these publications. They're online. And the idea is to use these, I like to call them pedestrian billboards rather than smart screens, how you would promote an active design or an active lifestyle through the screens. And as an example, I would say a place, for instance, like the High Line. We were going to promote people to, with the screen, show different features of the High Line to get them and to draw them through. But it isn't necessary now because the thing is so popular. But you could actually use it in a way, and Margaret mentioned the bike system, the bike routes. Besides putting it on your iPhone, the idea that maybe somebody would want to go over to one of these smart screens and look at the route, and then even to examine the landmarks in the area, it's drawing people out into the street. So if you use it the right way, you actually could promote an active lifestyle, I guess.
So one more thing before we wrap up, I just want to hand over the mic to Janine, who's going to tell us about an event that's relevant, that's happening this weekend. Thanks, Janine.
Hi, I'm Janine, and I work at Octopart, which is a part search engine. It's a startup based here in New York. I represent about a dozen tech companies, including people like Adafruit and MakerBot and Twilio, people in the hardware and comm space. And we're hosting a hack day this weekend, the 26th and the 27th, at ITP at NYU. And the event is entirely community-driven, and we were inspired by the city's call to creativity around reinventing the future of what payphones look like. You can find more information about this event at payphonehackaday.com. While there won't be an official winner coming out of this hack day, there will be reviewers, including the design firm that created the MetroCard machine. And all the sponsors are throwing in prizes and swag that you can win if you demo a hack. And we hope that it just brings people together to work together on ideas that they can submit in February. Thanks.
Thank you. So thanks, Janine. We're excited to see stuff like that happening. We're excited to see the meetup that was created about payphones. And again, just to sort of reiterate the goal, this is a really exciting opportunity for us. I think you can see sort of the interest and the passion that's coming from the city side. An enormous amount of work has gone into this. I want to thank Stanley. I want to thank all of our colleagues at Do It, and again, Laura and Seema for organizing. And again, this really, our goal is to innovate and to do this in a collaborative way. We have a mayor who himself is a technologist who developed one of the largest information technology companies in the world, and that is constantly committed to innovation and to helping people communicate and find the information they need, whether it's with the 311 system that was pioneered here, or the tons of the hackathons and design challenges we're doing now. And then finally, I think it's also just really exciting, and that's why we're so glad you're here, is to approach this in a really user-centric way. I think it's phenomenal to see the commitment and the message from everyone from the city who were looking at the user as the center and not dividing it up piece by piece in terms of what our agency is focused on. And it's really an exciting opportunity for us. So please join me in thanking our city experts, and thank you all for being here tonight.